Scotty, beam us up. Captain Kirk and the heroes of Star Trek called on the wizardry of 23rd century transporting to move from one place to another in their epic quest to go where no man had gone before. In Star Trek IV, The Voyage Home, Kirk even beams up beautiful Gillian with him to the Enterprise. Wow. Hi, friends. This is Larry Payne, your host of Tracks for the Journey, the podcast and network devoted to your well-being. I recently experienced a mental and spiritual transport through the practice of Lectio Divina. During a retreat led by spiritual director Dr. Mallory Wickoff, our group was taken to the shores of the Sea of Galilee. As we looked at that biblical passage, we imagined there stood Jesus, teaching from a boat to a crowd from the village. In our imaginations, we joined the crowd through minutes of guided reflection, transported like James Kirk to a different place and time. Now, what is Lectio Divina? Well, the Latin phrase means divine reading. Monks began to practice 1400 years ago to open their minds to God in a deeper way. Taking time to listen with the heart rather than analyze with the mind is central to the practice. Ruth Haley Barton shares this: when we engage the scriptures for spiritual transformation, we make it our top priority to listen to God relationally rather than seeking only to learn more about God cognitively. Our approach is driven by the longing of a lover. Scripture becomes an instrument of God's control and influence rather than a tool that we control to our own end. The dynamic relational experience between God and our personal experience is a foundation for the practice of sacred reading. Progressive theologies, such as process or open and relational theism, teach that God is active in every yoctosecond of our life. This presence pervades every atom of our body and every thought that courses in our neurons. In our mind, God nurtures the possibilities of each moment toward the best outcome. A person may sense an intuition, wish, longing, or behavior that moves toward well-being. God invites our collaboration in these conceptual experiences, like a friend and lover who delights in the oneness of life. In my experience that day of the retreat, I became one of the frustrated fishermen, weary after a night that only brought empty nets to the shore. I listened to the young rabbi who challenged me to have hope that God was working to bring a new way of living in an oppressive world. I felt skeptical when Peter followed the rabbi's instruction to try ineffective daylight fishing. But the awe and wonder swept over me as my boat filled with an incredible catch of fish. We celebrated with Jesus for hours. The next morning, though, he was gone, taking some of my friends. I was left wondering, what's next? What do I do if this rabbi is right about God's work in my world? With this imaginative encounter fresh in my mind, I returned, or was transported, back to my real world and the challenges of life. I was wondering, what's next? Just like the villagers of Galilee. What should I do, or can I do, in this chaotic season of life here in America? Well, let's think about practicing Lectio Divina in our own lives in the time to come. Ruth Haley Barton offers a 4-phase plan: reading, reflecting, responding, and resolving. The reading should be slow to allow each passage to draw us within the narrative. This is not a time for in-depth analysis or complex theology. We seek to savor the words in context as portals to the world of the passage at hand. Reflecting takes place as the passage is read again. Here is the place of listening to the Spirit within. We open our mind to the spotlight of the divine connection to a particular phrase, character, action, or dialogue that begins to resonate with our own spiritual journey. In my experience, becoming one of the fishermen grabbed my attention. A third reading of the passage moves us to responding. We link our humanity as it is to what we have heard. We sense an emotion welling up, perhaps, or an insight into our personality, or a link to the divine that grasps our soul. The response is authentic, perhaps unvarnished and raw, to the conversation with our sacred companion as we listen and respond. From this interaction, I think we can carry forward with a new resolve that seeks to enact what we experienced. Certainly, every experience brings change. Yet this mystical moment has probed deeper to bring a lingering, even a lasting adjustment to our journey of faith and life. As we closed the retreat session, many shared with Dr. Wyckoff what they had encountered. One had identified with a bird watching the whole scene from above, while another connected with the unworthiness of Peter. One man spoke about the risk of going to deeper water in his experience, and a woman about her frustrated longing to follow Jesus like the men. The comments were not about doctrines, about textual variations or analyzing the passage, or how someone else should believe, but about the intimate encounter of I and thou. Lectio Divina can be the moment when the Word takes on new flesh to once again to save the world. God's work, usually deeply hidden beyond our awareness, delivers a vital reality that transports our imagination to a new dimension. Thankfully, unlike the few disciples who walked away with Jesus in Luke 5, an invitation is extended to anyone to follow a new journey of faith. Like Captain Kirk, we can explore in realms where no one has ever gone before. Thanks, friend, for listening today. I hope you've enjoyed this episode of Tracks for the Journey. I invite you to find more resources on my website, www.tracksforthejourney.com. There you can subscribe to the weekly newsletter. I'd love for you to have it coming directly to your inbox, full of insights about your well-being. I hope you'll take time to rate and review this podcast and become a subscriber to the Tracks for the Journey Network.